Joining us today from Indiana, we have Joe Geary with us. Joe, great to have you with us. Joe is the Vice President of Customer Value at Biz Design, has over 30 years of experience in information technology across multiple industries. He has a passion for figuring out where business needs to go and then aligning all things digital to get them there. And Joe is going to talk to us today about faster, better decisions to unlock organizational value. Joe, we're very excited to see your presentation. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our global audience today.
Thank you, Jose. It's my pleasure to be here, and I thank all of you for joining. And yeah, you know, it's an interesting topic. You know, we're here at a transformation event. How do we facilitate transformation? And how can we equip you all to succeed in these business transformations that I'm sure you're all going through? So hopefully you can all see my screen now. I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. As Jose mentioned, I am the Vice President of Customer Value for Biz Design. I do have 30 years of IT experience across a number of industries. I do have a strong application architecture background, which has really allowed me to connect with the business and solve some interesting business challenges through technology. And that's really where my passion lies. How can we figure out where business is trying to go and then help them get there through all things digital? And I would imagine you all share in that passion. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be at this event today. So thank you again for joining. This picture, I really like this picture. I didn't create it, but I think it's a good starting point for us to kind of level set on what do I mean by enterprise architecture and really the opportunity here. So if we kind of take a step back, a lot of times I'll talk to EA customers, enterprise architects, who really are starting their journey down here in this solution architecture space, solution delivery, deployment and operationalization of solutions. And they're frustrated often by not having a seat at the table or being closer aligned to the business. And they're missing the opportunities or the discipline above this yellow band. And so if we take a step back, EA has a higher calling than just solution architecture, although that's a big part of it. But the higher calling is really to design better enterprises and to help in this business transformation journey. And so if we look here, you know, that begins with customer needs. It begins with compliance requirements or stakeholder needs. And it leads to stated desired outcomes that form business strategy. And when we start to look at that business strategy, we can see how things equate to our value generation for our customers. So how are we producing value? And when we break that down a bit further into stages of value delivery, we can start to align things with capabilities, business capabilities, or what makes us up as an organization. And I'll talk more about that in some coming slides. But by connecting the dots all the way from desired outcomes to capabilities, we can start to assess capability gaps and define initiatives to close those gaps, bring in our solution architects to design the solutions that will close those gaps and operationalize those. So I just wanted to start out with kind of the big picture of it's not just about solution architecture, it's also a combination of business architecture and solution architecture to stay connected with the business and help transform solutions forward. This is another depiction that I think we need to keep centered and focused on, and this is an S&P 500 index of company lifespans over time. So as you can see, as we continue to move forward in time, the average lifespan of companies continues to get shorter and shorter. And this is definitely a call to action for today. Business transformation and operational excellence are key ingredients to ensure that you're a surviving company and not one of the companies that are dropping off. And business transformation I view as a constant. Strategies continue to evolve. Business continues to advance. And we need to continue to stay focused on operational excellence. We've all gone through a pretty rough year and a half. I'm sure you've all experienced some change. And this pandemic has had a worldwide effect. And so to give a Gartner perspective, on what you're all dealing with, almost 100% of companies have had to make budget cuts. There's been a focus on the cost of goods sold and supply chain and corporate functions. 70% of companies have suspended their growth plans. 85% of companies have experienced a decrease in operating income. COVID has resulted in 10 to 20% IT budget cuts, which has, never before underscored this phrase of do more with less. I'm sure you're all feeling that as well. And there's been an increased focus on cost management, but more importantly, an increased focus on consequence management. So, the landscape over the last year and a half has really, if you tie these past two slides together, we've got ever-increasing threats, ever-increasing need to change, and COVID has created a key moment in time where EA is really being called to deliver on this business transformation journey. So why not just do it? Let's just go help with the transformation. And one of the problems is our enterprises are inherently complex. There's a lot. When we start thinking about making change, there's a lot going on. We've got ever-changing strategies. We've got hundreds of capabilities that make us up as an organization. We've got many hundreds of processes that are realizing those capabilities. We've got all kinds of people and ever-changing organizational structures. We've got lots and lots of applications, a ton of data, all kinds of technology, and many projects coming and going that are trying to influence this. So, I like this picture in the center because, I think it's many EA groups that I talk to are trying to get their arms around all of this. And they're trying to draw pictures and model as things continue to move. It's an ever-changing state. And so, I feel for you and all of you, but I'm here to help. And I think through today's presentation, you'll get some ideas on how to get your arms around all of this constant change and equip yourself with some new capabilities. So, I'm sure these data sources look familiar to you. You have application portfolio management systems, project portfolio management systems. You have your CMDBs, you have data governance platforms, and I could go on in this category. And that's your reality, is that you've got a number of different systems of record or sources of truth where things are in constant flux. They're changing all the time. And, it would be great to get your arms around that, because as architects, we have a kind of a bent or predisposition towards modeling things. We want to draw pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. And so we want to draw pictures and get our arms around this. However, these sources of truth or systems of record that house this data, again, they're on a constant state of flux. We need to figure out how to get our modeling to be data-driven. How can I keep up with this ever-changing source of information to generate some key insights? Because current state doesn't stay current for long. It continues to move. And beyond the models and the pictures, which have a place, no doubt, for creating solutions, how do I generate value as an enterprise architect? What does value look like? How do I define value? And I would contend that value in its simplest form or categorization falls into one of these three categories. How are you accelerating strategy? How are you optimizing operations? And how are you mitigating risk? And the reason these are important is because it's important to your leaders. This is what your CEO, your CFO, your COO, and your Chief Risk Officer are focused on. To put it another way, if you were to bump into your CEO in the elevator or virtual meeting, as it may be now, and just have a 30-second chat with them and ask them, hey, what do you think of the value of EA in our organization? How would the CEO respond? Would they say, EA, I didn't know we had anything called EA? Would they respond, oh, EA, you need to talk to somebody in IT about that. That's an IT thing. Or would they respond that EA is an instrumental function within your organization, and without them, they wouldn't be able to advance their strategy and achieve their business outcomes? Would your CFO say EA is critical to optimizing our costs across our entire portfolio? Would your COO say EA is enabling me to maximize the value of those assets that run our organization, both processes and technology? And would your CRO say EA allows me to sleep better at night by identifying risks and allowing us to mitigate those risks? I mean, that's really value, organizational value. And that's how I would challenge you all to think about enterprise architecture. And so how can we help you achieve these things, these three pillars of value? So we've spent a lot of time and energy at Biz Design in creating what we call change capabilities. And you could think of these as pre-built solution sets that sit on top of our platform. And these, and the coaching that goes along with them, but they're focused in very specific areas that align directly to accelerating strategy, optimizing operations, and managing risk. So things like business capability planning, business strategy advancement, portfolio management, application rationalization, technology version currency, information security risk management, and architectural alignment. These are areas that I'm sure you're all interested in, perhaps all struggling with, and where we, because we see this as a recurring themes and recurring opportunities for EA to generate value, these are areas where we have built these pre-built solution sets to enable you quickly. So just to highlight these a bit more from the perspective of the value each one of these solution sets provides, key stakeholders, value metrics. I won't go through them all for the sake of time, but we have, portfolio management, where we're getting our arms around our applications and our initiatives. Why is that important? Well, because we might want to do things like application rationalization and identify elimination opportunities, or identify where our currently provided applications are not going to meet the strategic business need, or capability mapping to identify where we have a high degree of functional overlap or complexity, or areas, again, where we're not meeting the technology strategy or business strategies that may exist, and be able to map that into business terms, business language, or technology version currency, where you all have a ton of assets, database instances, server OSs, applications. Where are you at with the life cycle of those assets? Are we still on vendor supported versions? How can I identify that and drill down into the details of where we have problems? Strategy advancement. How can I really analyze my strategy to spend and find out where I have misalignment and need to redirect efforts to make sure we have maximum business alignment? And PII risk, information risk. Where am I exposed? And can I put that back into the business context? And architectural alignment. So these are a number of pre-built solution sets. And what do you get with each one of these pre-built solution sets? What do I mean by a pre-built solution set or a change capability? I mean, we're going to target very specific business outcomes with each one of these components. They're very specific business questions that will be answered. They're all of the key views and visualizations that are easy to digest by your business stakeholders to be able to articulate things like, here are opportunities to mitigate risk. Here are opportunities to advance strategy. Key visualizations. It's all the underlying model definitions. I'm not saying that models aren't important. I think they're critical. And to be able to data drive those models and produce these visualizations automatically, I think is also critical to keeping up with ever-changing current state. So it's all of the objects, the relationships from different sources of information that are automatically constructed. It's the data connectors and means to bring this data in from all of your different systems of record and sources of truth. It's the data exchange mechanisms. So whether that's via our API or via workbooks or via different connectors that we offer to specific platforms, it is the ability to bring this data in consistently, as well as federate out the data maintenance and governance aspects of keeping that data current. It's the combination of these views and insights into easy to navigate portal, which we call Horizon. So how can I present all of this in an easy to digest manner to my stakeholders? And it's this ability to keep this ongoing. Again, current state doesn't stay current for long. And on top of all the technology that I've just described, and this is just as important, this design is made up of a lot of experts who are passionate about enterprise architecture. When we enable you with one of these pre-built solution sets, it's not just dropping off the technology and running, it's holding your hand through the adoption and making sure you're building up that muscle, that skill set, that capability. So it's regular meetings, it's knowledge transfer sessions, it's joining you in various customer interaction sessions if you have never done that before. So it's coaching all the way through and holding your hand to make sure that you succeed in adopting that capability. So wanted to demonstrate a few views. I mean, this has all been interesting to talk about from an abstract perspective. So let's take a look at some actual, live, views here that would become realized for some of these change capabilities. So for example, technology version currency. Can you show me a view that conveys, hey, here's the percentage of my database and my operating system instances that are still on vendor supported versions. And by the way, here's the number of instances that are already unsupported or will become unsupported within 1 year or 2 years or beyond, so that we can create runway to get a jump on things, make sure that we're not only bringing our currently unsupported instances into support, but we're also planning ahead so that we're not right back in this unsupported state by the end of next year. Why is this important? Well, that you're probably paying extended support, which means you're paying a premium and paying more for less, which is a CFO concern. You're not getting all the functional gains that have been delivered in future releases, which is a COO concern. And you haven't applied all of the patches to this outdated, unsupported technology to protect your assets, which is a CRO concern. So there's multiple CXO level concern in managing your technology, and we provide views that allow you to go from high level understanding and drill down all the way into the details of what are the exact instances that are out of date. Or application rationalization. How can we view our portfolio and drill into our specific areas of our business to see our alignment to business value and technical health, to generate calls to action where we should eliminate applications that aren't meeting our business strategic need or our technical strategic desires, or where we need to migrate to something technically healthier, or where we need to harvest more business value. So we produce a way to automatically generate these types of insights, again, very interactive and with drill down, but beyond just this high level depiction and drill into each portfolios, how can we take that a step further and help with your prioritization of which applications are you going to go after first? So we have this, what we call quick wins. Let's take a look at all of those applications from a critical and non-critical perspective, see which ones are not generating sufficient business value, and let's look at them from a functional complexity perspective or capability breadth perspective. And those that are doing less within our organization, that are probably easier to unhinge and take out because they're not supporting as many people groups or capabilities. Let's go after those sooner than later. They'll be easier to migrate or eliminate. Capability mapping. I mean, I'm a huge fan of capability modeling. In fact, it'll be one of my recommendations at the end of this presentation. If you don't have a capability model, I would move forward in getting one created because it is the Rosetta Stone. It allows you to communicate anything of interest in the business language. So something technical like we have data risk when information is flowing from this app to this app. How can I allow a business person to make sense of that? Well, if I can boil that risk back up to the capability model and put it in their language, then all of a sudden they understand it. Or in this case, show them the business value from that last application rationalization exercise, but aggregate that back up. Instead of talking applications, aggregate that back up to the capability model so that we can talk about how these less than sufficient applications are affecting us from a business perspective. Big fan of capability modeling. I had mentioned this strategy advancement. So again, how can I look at my capability model from a strategy perspective and the goals and the outcomes that I'm trying to achieve, and look at strategy to spend? You know, all of a sudden we're seeing things like, hey, do you realize that only 30% of your investment is going towards business strategy advancement? And the ability to drill down and see, well, where's the rest of my money going? You know, from a business perspective, that's hugely important and can position you to increase alignment to strategy advancement. Or this notion of risk. You know, how can I look at the processes and sub-processes and information flows below my capability level, aggregate that risk of those information flows from an impact and likelihood perspective, and heat map my capability model so that I can have meaningful conversations with the business. And provide all the drill down capabilities and connecting the dots. So for example, I see my capability connected to business processes that are leveraging, relying on information flowing from one people group to another application, and can I rate or objectively score the risk of that information flow to compute PII risk, impact, and likelihood? And you can. So to put this in perspective, we have a platform, and I would call it a superior platform because it has some major components and massive amount of capability in itself to do about whatever you'd like, but it focuses on data integration. How can I pull information in, whether using a REST API or Excel workbooks? How can I get data into my platform? How can I model that information with a variety of techniques, whether it's Archimate or UML or ERD or BPMN? And how can I draw some interesting insights from this information or these dots that I'm connecting? So that's at our core. We have a platform. But what I've been describing to you today is this notion of these pre-built solution sets, change capabilities, we call them, to accelerate strategy, manage risk, and optimize operations so that we deliver value to those key stakeholders, our CEO, CFO, COO, and CRO, and we do it in weeks. And that's an important statement. We do this in weeks, not in months, and not in years. I mean, you guys have all probably been part of attempting to do things that has taken you a lot longer than anticipated. We're here to tell you that we can equip you and coach you to deliver this type of value in a very short amount of time. Why is this important? You know, why? Just to put this in another context, we did a survey recently of the state of enterprise architecture. And we were gauging the maturity of participants in the survey. And here's what we found. EA maturity leaders are 3.4 times higher in organizational agility. They can flex and spin and deliver faster. They're 4 times higher or more likely to outchange their industry peers, which if you go back to that Standard & Poor's picture is hugely important, right? You want to extend your life of your company because unless you do, the future is at risk. So you're 4 times greater to outchange your peers. You're 2.6 times better at dealing with unplanned business changes. And I bet if I call the poll right now, everyone has dealt with unplanned business changes. You're 2.9 times more likely to say that you've executed plan changes well. And that alignment to where the business is trying to go, that where they set expectations or wishes at the beginning of your demand planning cycle, and then at the end of the year, they're frustrated with IT perhaps not getting them there. Who couldn't use a boost in this area? Or 1.8 times greater business satisfaction with IT, or 1.5 times higher in agile maturity, or 2.2 times better at delivering new capabilities and innovation. And overall, 3.6 times better in CX maturity. So these are measured results. This is why it's important to increase your maturity as EEA, get better at business transformation. And we have change capabilities and a superior platform to help get you there. So where to begin? Where should you really start on this journey? We have something called an organizational value assessment. They give us a workshop where we're going to go through a series of questions, and you'll respond with, yeah, that would be great if we could provide that insight or answer that question. And you'll rate that desire on a 1 to 5 for each of our questions, and we'll come out with a roadmap that says, based on the insights that you want to generate, which all align to strategy advancement, run optimization, and risk mitigation, here's the capabilities you want to build up, and here's a sequence based on your statement of desire and value. So we would plot out a path with you that would depict this capability adoption and be able to articulate the resulting value that you'll get as you take those steps. So again, it would look, it'd be a timeline where we would sequence out with you these capabilities to adopt. They'd be in short order. Again, this is in weeks, not months and years. We would show you the prioritization of your value categories and the importance of each of these capabilities delivered as sprints, and come up with a plan. And there's several things I want to mention here, kind of some lessons learned or some tips. As I've worked with a number of customers and as I've done all of this myself, one tip would be, and I mentioned this earlier, adopt a business capability model. I can't stress this enough. To be able to have a depiction of what you're all about down to 3 levels, and it just will provide you with a great communication mechanism with your business. But in constructing this capability model, don't spend a year in the ivory tower thinking about what it's going to be without any kind of interaction or validation from the business. I would recommend you gravitate towards some industry reference model, some model that's already out there that you can adopt quickly, and just be willing to flex it and change it as you interact with your business. So, faster rather than disappear and take a year to try to create the perfect business capability model that's going to have to change anyway as soon as you take it into your organization. Another tip, let the business point you to the priority concern areas. So for example, if you were moving forward with PII, risk identification and mitigation, and you had this capability model with hundreds of capabilities, you could say, well, we're going to have to systematically move our way through every capability looking for risk. But I would argue that's the wrong approach. I would actually interact with your key business leadership, your executives, and say, hey, where do you suspect that we might have PII risk based on the nature of PII information, personal information, and about the business that's depicted here in this capability model? Well, they'll have good ideas. For example, they might point you into the area of customer management or third-party, fourth-party interactions where they know they've formed business partnerships and are exchanging customer information. Or they may point you towards the area of human resources where we have employee information, and where, again, we might be exchanging information with some third or fourth parties, or even managing it ourselves, but perhaps concerns over how we're managing it. Let them point you in the right direction and the right priority areas. It'll work out better for you. Top-down business sponsorship. Well, I'm probably not telling you anything new there, but I've interacted with a lot of customers who have tried to make change from the bottom up, and it's pretty tough. It's hard going. The more you have top-down business sponsorship for your enterprise architecture activities, the easier things will go. But I would tell you the way you get top-down business sponsorship is you need to articulate organizational value in a way they understand. So, for example, it shouldn't be, hey, we can make really cool Archimate models. That's not going to do it. That's not going to excite the business. But if instead you could say, hey, I'm going to have specific ways to accelerate your business strategy delivery. I'm going to have specific ways to identify and mitigate risk. I'm going to have specific ways to optimize operations, how to get more value out of what we've already purchased, and how to reduce costs in key areas. Speaking that language and articulating the specific ways will get you a seat at the table. It will generate excitement from above, and you'll have top-down sponsorship from the business. You just need to be able to articulate it that way and in detail. Automate data-driven insights and view generation. I've alluded to this several times. This is hugely important. I can't stress it enough. Current state doesn't stay current for long. So if all of your enterprise architecture capacity is being spent on drawing current state diagrams, you're going to be in trouble because things are going to continue to move out from underneath you. You need to automate as much of that as possible. Bring in data from external sources, automatically generate the views and insights, and then you can focus on interactions with your stakeholders rather than all the energy to rework your models on a never-ending basis. Progress over perfection. Don't boil the ocean. Find some friendlies. I lump this all into the same category, the same tip. It's really, be careful to think that you need to solve everything on day one. Find a friendly, meaning find a business area, one of your verticals, one of your departments that's interested in working with you to try some new things out, that's interested in having you focus on their strategy advancement or risk mitigation or run optimization. Don't sweep across all of your capabilities, and think I've got to do application rationalization for everything. Pick a subset and try to build up some capability with a subset and with some friendlies of your overall portfolio. And my last tip is reach out to us. What drew me to BizDesign when I joined BizDesign was really a superior platform, sure, but it's the amount of expertise this organization has. They are enterprise architecture leaders and experts, and they can help. Whether it's enabling you on a superior platform, whether it's helping you with how are we going to reposition for organizational value, and how can we define that journey? How can we develop these capabilities and get a big jump start with the capabilities that we already provide? The coaching, the training, the consulting, these are all really, really important, even beyond the technology. And that's what we're all passionate about. My job is making sure you're successful at delivering organizational value. And that's a great job to have. So I would love to talk to each and every one of you. So here's some connection information for me. I would love to connect with all of you. My LinkedIn, and again, I want to thank you for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and sharing some ideas with you, hopefully showing you some ways to get a fast path to truly generating organizational value. I think it's really important in light of today's and yesterday's and tomorrow's overall presentations on business transformation. And I firmly believe enterprise architecture is called to this very thing. So thank you.
Joe, thank you for that fantastic review of the capabilities development that's necessary for meaningful transformations and this broad perspective on EA architecture and the value it can bring to the business. Lots of questions, so I'll just start with one on William Fuller asked a question very early on in your presentation, and he asked, in today's world of change, transformation, and IT capability expansion, is it really even possible to have a single source of truth, which is something that we all talk a lot often? And
Yeah.
and if so, how do we get there to the single source of truth?
Yeah, it's a great question, and thanks for asking that, William. You know, I would agree. There is not a single source of truth. There are too many sources of truth. I mean, if you look at any enterprise of any kind of size, right, which all of you are in, there's many sources of truth. I depicted there's your applications are stored in one place, your projects are stored in another, your configuration items are in another, your data governance artifacts are in another, and I could go on and on and on. I think a strength of biz design is the acknowledgement that biz design will likely not be the source of truth or the system of record for all of those things. The important thing is to be able to pull that information in rapidly, easily, through a number of techniques that we have, whether it's a REST API, whether it's a data extract and transform and load mechanism, you know, a number of ways, whether it's collaboration online in real time. But you need to be able to pull this information in. You need to generate the insights that will lead to better decision making. So facilitating those conversations to drive to better decision making, better funding decisions, better risk mitigation decisions, better strategy advancement decisions by leveraging multiple sources of truth and systems of record. There are some cases where design may very well be your single source of truth. For example, it may be the system of record for your business capability model, but the things you link to it, like the applications, they're likely going to be pulled from somewhere else, whether it's your CMDB or an APM. So that ability to integrate is essential. That's a great question.
Very well. That's well said. Let me shift into another theme that emerged on the questions, and that has to do with the capability enablement that you talked about. You know, this rapid iterative value delivery,
Yeah.
which is very enticing for sure. But there are questions about, you know, how do we get there? And you specifically, you talked about gauges of technical health and gauges of business value, which the audience thinks it's tremendous, but maybe difficult to get. So curious about the process behind that. How do you get to that technical health metric? How do you get to that business value metric?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just like I gave a tip on don't boil the ocean, I've thrown a lot out there today on these different change capabilities. We would never recommend you take all of these change capabilities on all on day one and try to move forward. So don't boil the ocean on these as well. That's why we have this thing called an organizational value assessment workshop. Let's work together and decide which capabilities make most sense to you to deliver over what point in time. And we'll take it a step at a time together, both deploying the technology, the techniques, and the coaching to get you to value. But to specifically answer this question, how do you gauge technical health? How do you gauge business value from an application rationalization perspective? So beyond the technology and the cool graphs that provide drill down capability, beyond that, we provide you with a scoring model. And the scoring model is based on some best practices and industry standards. It is a set of questions to objectively measure the technical health of an application, and a set of questions that you would interact and ask with your business stakeholders to objectively measure the business value of each of your applications. And objectively measure is key, because you want to be able to say we use the same yardstick against measuring each of these applications consistently. So we provide you with that. We then work with you to customize those scoring models to make sense for your organization. You might want to deviate from these reference models we provide, and we provide you with a way to change the weighting factors of all the questions being asked and how they go into computation of business value and tech health. So we work with you through all of that, above and beyond just the deployment of the solution set. We do the coaching around, hey, here's a scoring model. How would you want to change this to make sense in your organization? Coaching you to get organizational buy-in from above, because you want to get agreement on that scoring model for tech health and business value before you go and interact with all of your stakeholders, and then to come back and find out, oh, wait a minute, we asked the wrong questions. You don't want that. So we coach you through that, and we'll even coach you in, if you've never done this before and you need help, show me what it's like to facilitate a scoring session with a business stakeholder group, or with my IT SMEs in scoring technical health. We'll even conduct those initial scoring sessions, let you record them, show you how it's done based on our years of experience in doing this. So it's a great question. There's a lot behind all of this, but we'll hold your hand through it all and make sure you really do build up this muscle, this capability.
That's excellent. I mean, you provide some helpful insights on that. And Joe, when you are developing this capability for EA that you discussed here, you gave a lot of very helpful tips, and everybody appreciates that quite a bit. But for an organization, if you go back to kind of an organization that is beginning this journey right now, and you talk about the value assessment, and you can do some quick wins there. Tell us a little bit about, in terms of the internal capabilities of the organization before engaging with you on this journey of capability enablement and assessment and enablement.
Yeah.
What are some of the skill sets that are necessary within the organization that make this work with you more productive? What are some of the things that people need to look at internally and maybe do a little bit cleaning of the house, if you will, before they invite you in? What are some of the things that you think can really help organizations and leaders prepare for that engagement?
Yeah, I think that's a great question as well. I'll take that in kind of two parts. One is, what is a skill set needed by an enterprise architecture group? And I'll be honest with you, the biggest one is a passion to help the business move forward, a passion to interact with the business and really anchor their value to strategy advancement, risk mitigation, run optimization. If the passion is there, we can equip that group. Now, are there some skills used in different capabilities than others? Sure. For example, if I'm talking about the change capability that's specifically business strategy advancement, well, we're going to be looking at the different business plans across each of your segments. We're going to be extracting from that business outcomes, business goals. We'll probably be leveraging these notions of business outcome journey mapping and value stream, value stage capability assessment. These are skills that typically fall into the realm of business architects. So if you have some business architecture focus, or people that like the business architecture hat, or a willingness to stretch into that business architecture role, that'd be great. Other capabilities are going to be more leaning towards, and where a lot of EA groups have come from and maybe are more comfortable in that technical architecture side. So when we're talking about version currency, we're going to be talking to your CMDB system administrators on how we can extract data out of there, and how we can actually clean it up and normalize that data, which we have techniques and tooling to do, so that we're not dealing with inconsistent or quality issues when we bring that data in. But the second part of that, which is, should we hold off until we have things cleaned up? I hear that a lot, and I would argue that as we prioritize these change capabilities, we can layer in things like data governance, and how do we federate out data maintenance responsibilities to keep the metadata current. And I wouldn't wait Your businesses don't have the luxury of waiting. If you look at that very early chart I depicted on that S&P 500 graph, the luxury of waiting isn't there. So I would be moving forward where you can. In where you don't have the data, let's go get it. Well, how can I do that? I would say it's the business case. When you start talking about the value of strategy advancement, risk mitigation, and run optimization from a business perspective, it will warrant the offsetting cost of getting the data or in cleaning up data, because the value or the benefit will be there. So I would talk cost benefit, and let's talk together about opportunities where we can take what you currently have, both skill set and data, and put it to better use to generate greater organizational value. I'm sure we can move you forward.
That's fantastic, Joe. Thank you for those insights. We're on time right now, and I want to thank you on behalf of our global audience for sharing this very valuable insights and perspectives, and we're all better off as a result. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jose. It was my pleasure, and thank you all for participating today.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Joe Geary, Vice President of Customer Value at Biz Design, showing very insightful journey and capability development for enterprise architecture in the organizations. Very informative, very insightful presentation. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to be bringing an amazing innovation leader directly from Europe. I'm talking about Alan Bindels, who is the head of innovation and digitalization at Roche Biopharmaceutical. And he's going to talk about from issue to innovation, developing a composable business architecture to drive innovation and improve business resilience. So you do not want to miss that session with Alan. We'll be taking a break now. We'll be back at the top of the hour. You can check our post on LinkedIn and provide comments, feedback, ask additional questions. Participants and speakers are using that to communicate in between sessions and certainly after the sessions as well. For now, break time. I'll see you back with Alan Bindels at the top of the hour.